Okay, so we're going to start our Q&A session now. So if all of my panelists can please switch on their videos so that we can see you, that would be great. And I will start to work through some of the questions that we've got, and I've got some questions for our presenters as well. I'm going to start with some of the questions we've got in the Q&A here that are particularly about Talea and about its future development. So 2 people asked about photographs in Talea. Now, we've also been looking at this for a while and trying to weigh up the pros and cons, because there are also more challenges with including photos within Talea, including things like you end up with quite a lot of data transfer. So at the moment, we are not planning on including it, but it's not a closed development point. So the fact that 2 of you have asked about that today sort of adds weight to the fact that we need to keep reviewing how we potentially could do this without too many negatives. So thank you for those questions. I did have 2 people also ask about when will Talea be available on iPhones. Oh, I wish I could give you a date. We really want to do that, but it is another development step. So we're looking for funding at the moment. Anyone has any ideas for someone who might want to fund that particular step, that would be great. At the moment, having it only on Android works quite well for most countries, but it's obviously a bit of a limit when we get to the US, where the iPhone Android usage is more equal. So it is something that we want to change, and we're trying. Couple of other questions here, and then I'm going to ask our presenters to jump in. There's one actually from Harish Tiwari, who I know has done a lot of surveying himself because I've read his papers, and he was talking about how many surveys would be considered sufficient when you're doing a Mark Resite survey. So it was actually HSI that did 3 in Mumbai. And would you say that that was sufficient? We landed on 3 being your minimum really for a good Resite survey when you're using photography and you're trying to create a recapture history. So 3 is really the minimum, and this is sort of coming from that resource limited point. And I know that Harish has done more like 5 to 7 surveys and required those to reach proper saturation. So if you can do more, it's definitely better. And Harish, if you would like to pop one of your publications in the chat, because I know that you have published on this before, and it would be nice to share those publications with the audience. I'll do one more question, and then I'm going to ask one of Dr. Obb. Okay, so Mariam asked the question of, is it possible to combine these estimation tools with the number of inhabitants in the area? And I think Tamara's just shown us a neat way of how they've done that, where they've looked at the density of dogs and they've looked at the density of human habitation in that same area. And you saw that lovely graph that she plotted there, showing how as the human density increases, how the dog density decreases. So there's definitely a relationship there. So there isn't a way of including that within Talea, but definitely once you have your data, you can plot that against the human density as well. I think that's what you meant by the number of inhabitants in the area. Okay, I'm going to please put more questions in the Q&A for any of the presenters. I wanted to ask Dr. Obb something. So Dr. Obb was responsible for training his soy dog teams in how to use Talea, and also to take on repeating the animal welfare survey that had first been done in 2016 by Matt Blackhouse. And Dr. Obb, I wanted to ask you which part of that training was really the most challenging, and whether you had tips for people that are facing the same thing when they're setting up their new surveys and looking to train surveyors.
Hi. Yes, hi everyone. Can I share my video, all right?
Perfect.
Thank you so much about the difficult point of the setup for survey, because of can you imagine we face off the big 6 province in Greater Bangkok. that contained 630,000 of dog by estimate. So it's a huge area and a huge number of dog population inside. So we cannot finish this by only one person. I know Matt is here from for that help us for running survey in the first time. It's very hard work of him, and he is very Superman. And when when I re-survey again, I know it's a very hard work to do only one man. So this is a hard work as well to get a high standard accuracy or the consistency of the answer that our observer make. So for my vision, you need to prepare them, check them about their vision, about each answer, that make sure they answer in the same way, in the same vision, such as body condition score. Because of body condition score is a have the score 1 to 5, right? And near, and it's very near, and they made a confuse about the score 3 and 4. And so our dog catcher a wrong answer so much in the score 3 and 4 in the picture. That make them need to retest and again until we make a confident the consensus. And another one is uh, serious skin score as well, because of sometimes the dog lay down in the ground and have some of the weird skin or the dirty skin from the dog. Maybe it's make them confused, this is the skin disease or not, or it's just a dirty skin, something like that. It's very difficult. So the tip that I need to suggest you need to find somewhere, some area that have the enough sample of dog that you can show them, make them in the same vision, test them as much as you can, and it can help you to less problem during the survey. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Ob. Thank
Yes.
you. And actually, we did have another question around photographs, and that if Talea allowed you to collect photographs, it would help you with analysing inter and intra observer reliability. In the absence of having photos as part of the template, I suggest using that ICAM quiz as a way of testing your intra and inter observer reliability. And I would, I think, suggest addressing that as a separate part of your training rather than rolling it into the survey as it continues. So that would be my way of addressing that, taking the question of observer reliability and doing sort of a little test with that with your observers separately outside of the survey itself. We had a question here from Jessica. After doing a comprehensive baseline data collection for follow-up counts, how many route tracings would you do? Which is a good question. How many is enough? And I don't think there's a very clear line as to when you say you have enough. I would say if you're using hotspot routes, I would feel comfortable if I was covering at least half of the known hotspot routes, hotspots with my route. That would be really my minimum. It would be great if you could have enough routes that could cover all of the known hotspots, but if you can't, then at least aim for maybe half of those. I think that it is possibly just as important to try and go for at least one replication of your hotspot route if you can. So if you get to the point of saying, oh, I could add some more hotspot routes or I could add some replication, I think it's worth including some replication as well. So I don't have a precise answer for that. I think aim for at least half of that dog population to be covered, that known hotspot dog population to be covered by your routes as follow-up. More is always better, but we are limited in our time, so we have to weigh up. There was a question here also from Antonio. From your experience, do you think Talea app can or should be used by citizens in reporting sightings of roaming animals. I think there's nothing wrong with involving citizens in a sort of a citizen science project to use Talea app to do your surveys. And in fact, Joe, when he did the cat surveys, they use citizen scientists. They use people, volunteers who said they would like to come and help out with the survey. The app is easy to do, and if you do your training well, then it should be relatively short and quite a simple thing to ask volunteers to be part of. But I think you may be asking about whether you could have people all the time recording the sightings of dogs and cats as they're going about their normal business. I don't think Talea is perfectly really designed for that, because you need to end up having quite a large sandbox that covers the whole area that they're in. You'd have to be sure that they pause their survey once they've recorded a sighting, otherwise it record everywhere they go after that point, because remember, Talea records your track as well as the sightings that you record. So I would say that not for ad hoc adding roaming animal sightings at any time, but do feel confident that Talea app is simple enough that you can involve citizen scientists as your surveyors for any upcoming surveys. I'm going to pop a question over to Dr. Alla now. And Alla, I wanted you to talk about which indicators you have found most useful when you've been evaluating the impact of your CNVR project, because it's now into the 6th year and obviously there's been some significant changes taking place. So which of those indicators have been most useful for you?
Hello, everybody. Hi. So, yeah, we're actually in the 7th year at the moment. It depends on what we're looking at. I mean, for us as an animal welfare organization, obviously the most exciting thing to see is the improvement in animal welfare, in the dog welfare. So we can see that through improved body condition score, through improved skin condition score, and also through an increase in signs of ownership, because this is something that we can really see clearly over the last 6 years. In 2016, it was about 32%. And right now we're at almost 80%, which of course doesn't mean that all these dogs are owned. But we look at things like, you know, dogs with collars, wearing T-shirts, you know, obviously engaging with people in kind of domesticated behavior. So we're looking at people's attitudes changing towards these dogs. It looks like a good sign that people are at least interested in the welfare of these animals. So this is something very exciting for us, for SoyDog, and for our supporters and our donors, right? Whereas when talking with the government bodies and also with other stakeholders, with the universities, other people who are kind of involved in this similar project, for them, the key question is always about reduction. So is there a reduction in the density of, you know, are there less dogs? How long will it take to clear it all? You know, I'm sure everybody is dealing with similar situation when talking to governments, right? So we can see that there is definitely a steady decline. It's not, it's going to be a long-term project. We are fighting against abandonment and all these things, but we can definitely see a reduction, so about 5% every year. So that is also a good sign and something positive to bring to discussions with the government, trying to get them on board to support our initiatives and to collaborate, you know. And another thing that pops up talking to governments is often rabies, as they have this rabies project here. The aim was to have Thailand free of rabies by 2020 initially. Later on, it was 2023. The deadline is being moved all the time. So rabies is definitely also a hot topic. But for us, it's something very difficult to tackle, because obviously the government is also doing a lot there. So we're still looking at ways how we could tackle that problem. But for us, welfare of animals, clearly a change in the relationship of people towards these animals, right? So that's very positive. And when talking to the government, we can definitely say there is a very slow but definite reduction in the numbers. So yeah, that's it, I think.
Thank you, Alla, that's great. One thing I want to mention, because I know their project fairly well, is that one of the attributes in the template is around signs of ownership, and it's not not full ownership of the dog, but signs that it's cared for by someone. It has a collar, it's wearing a little t-shirt, someone's put a bowl of water or a bowl of food nearby. And the proportion of the dog population that shows that signs of some kind of care of ownership has increased dramatically over the period of the project. So it's, although the government may be keen to have no dogs on the streets, I would say the citizens of Bangkok are really very welcoming of the dog population, which is good for the dogs, most definitely.
Another thing I want to add is obviously not related to Talea app, but just to say that, you know, you can do other things as well to have more data to convince your governments and so on, right? The reports in animal, you know, in animal nuisances and so on in Bangkok, it used to be huge. Now it's declined, especially the last couple of years. It's been on the decline. So we can't say it's directly correlated to this, you know, CNVR project, but we can play it that way to say, look, there are fewer reports and fewer angry citizens. So these dogs are more accepted by the society for sure. Yeah, so that's positive.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's that really good point that you don't want to rely only on your survey in order to evaluate your project. You want to come in with different data types and different ways of looking at those same indicators or similar indicators, looking at the same impact, so that you can build a story that has more than one evidence base. So thank you, Ala, that was really helpful. I'm going to go back to some of our Q&As. We've got one here from Salima, who's talking about a CNVR project in Tangier, where they have been doing CNVR of dogs. They have a yellow tag and they don't get culled, but unfortunately there is a culling of the untagged dogs, which is a terrible shame. I'm sorry to hear that, Sally, that's really hard. The question was, will the counting or the estimate given be correct? In terms of the count, if you're just doing an index of population size, that index should still be accurate. It will tell you if the population has decreased or not. If you're asking about the mark resite part that I talked about, where you were looking at the number of marked dogs that have been put out into the street, and then looking at the proportion of marked dogs that are remaining, that would be affected by this, because of course untagged dogs are being removed all the time, and so your estimate of detectability is not going to be accurate in that case. So your population index would still be reliable, but any measure of detectability would be questionable, because there is a biased removal of the unmarked dogs from the population. Izzy asks a question about whether it's possible to add a microchip number to each dog's records. You can, at the end of each sighting, you have the opportunity to add a note. So for example, some of the work that Dr. Obb was doing, if they saw a dog that was ill or injured, they would tap the Talea app to say, yes, this dog has a visible injury. And then in the notes, they would describe what that injury was. So you could use the notes to add a microchip number. And then at the end, when you download the data, yes, you can download it as a CSV file. And when you download, you can see the individual record for every dog is on a single row within the CSV file. So it will show the choices selected or the answers for each of the questions about that dog. And then the notes will be in the final column. So that's where the microchip number could be accessed. So it's possible to do that. Else do we have? I think we have one more here, which is Carlette asked how many repeat surveys should be done on each route. It's another one of those questions where I don't have a very precise answer. More is better. We get away with just two surveys on the same route on consecutive days. It helps having two. If you can have three, that's brilliant. If you could have 10, that would be amazing. But we've got to be realistic about what we can do. It's really worth doing it twice. If you can do it 3 times, that's an amazing data set, because you really get a beautiful measure of how the dog population or cat population estimates just vary day to day. So you get that sort of daily measurement error, and that really does help your statistics later on. It means that you can get a relatively minimal decline in density, and it will still be statistically significant, because you can start to separate out what's a day-to-day variation in measurement and what's a real reduction in the population. or increase in the population, depending on how it goes. So if you can do it 3 times, that would be amazing. If you can just do it twice, that's really helpful. So not a precise answer, sorry about that. And I think that's it. We've come to our last minute. So I just want to thank all the presenters from today, and thank you for joining us. And as I said at the beginning, we will put the videos from all the presentations on our website. So if you want to come back and watch anything later on, you'd be very welcome. So thank you for being with us today, and good luck with your surveying. Bye for now.